Amazing. Hello and welcome to the EB Academy today for team management. Um, let's start. As you know, there's also one education part, so one session by Gizai about team standards, and I highly recommend you to look at this one, and then use team management part as kind of an add-on for this. So this is rather how are you behaving with your team. For LCP, so of course for the EB team, and if you're EB, if you're a team leader, then as well. So what are the objectives of the sessions? It's to understand what is effective team management, what is the right atmosphere and culture that I should have in my team, what do I use team spaces for, and at the end we'll have some do's and don'ts as well. Keep in mind before we start that every single team is different. So even when you share your experience with other VPs, when you share your experience with other LCs, all of you will have a slightly different story. So try not to compare yourself to your predecessors, but really to give it a chance for your own way. As well, the second point is beginnings aren't always easy. So for example, if you remember now, the team that you're in now, maybe right now everything is great, but if you then also look back in the beginning, sometimes it takes some time. We will go through the team phases in a second, and then you will also better understand why that is. And lastly, the first 90 days are the most important. So these are actually the days that are defining your term, and you can actually see if your team will be successful or not, depending on if they have made it through the team phases. Cool. How do you actually create the right culture and the right atmosphere within your team? I think this goes without saying, but before being able to create this atmosphere or culture, you need to first of all need to be very clear on what is the culture or what is the atmosphere that you want to create. Because then, based on role modeling, people are taking up this behavior and mirroring how you are behaving. One thing as well from my own experience, that whatever you as a team leader will focus on will happen. So if you look at it, for example, from this point of view, you having consideration and attraction on this at the same time. Of course, both things need to happen. But if you don't manage to actually push in both areas, only the one that you are laying focus on will happen. Whenever working with people, it's also important to know what are they getting motivated by, what is their source of motivation, so that you can balance and manage energy within your team and commitment within your team as well. Understand what your team needs, what do they need as an individual, but also what do they need as groups, and based on this you can shape your touch points, which leads to the last point. It's actually using the touch points that you're having. We will look in a second more closely on what are actually touch points you're having with your team. Anyways, you already know this from team standards, but also to make sure that you use these to the fullest and to the purpose of why they are here. In order to go through these whole things, you need to understand the needs of your team. What is the stage that they are in currently? And based on this, how do you need to react for it in order to work? Sorry. So as you can see here, there's four phases, which is forming, storming, norming, and performing. There's actually also a fifth phase, which is called adjoining, which is then at the end the team closing from team standards as well. Let's take a closer look. So forming is actually the beginning stage of every team when you're first coming together and you're building your team. If you can see on the screen, always the left column is how are members behaving in this team, and the right thing is what is it that you should do in order to actually treat them with what they need. So in the forming phase, most members are actually positive and polite because some of them maybe have not even fully understood what is actually the work that the team will do. And depending on the personality, some are also just simply excited. So this is when people are also getting to know each other for the first time. What is from you there needed as a person who's managing the team is directing the team in the beginning and establishing clear objectives with every single individual member, but also with the whole team. So everybody knows what is expected from them in this new construct, in this new team, what is their role within it. And this is something that you need to establish together. When it comes to storming, Storming, there, one main important thing also to mention is storming doesn't necessarily need to be fighting in terms of loud and angry and everything like this, but it can also simply be a conflict between the natural working style, as you can see here in point two, because you're starting to work more on the parentheses normal together. However, you're still very misaligned, maybe, and don't know each other's working style so much. So people are starting to push against the boundaries that they establish in the forming space. So kind of like teenagers, testing out the limits in general. Team members may challenge your authority in the sense of that makes a lot of sense because they now in the forming stage got to know more knowledge about their role. They're understanding their role of their team. So also they're pretty much checking out how much does each member or team leader know and withstand in their role. If you didn't do the forming work properly, and if people didn't understand clearly how the team will work, what is their role, people may feel overwhelmed and overloaded with actually the work that they have to do because they don't understand how they're needing to approach it. Also, one of the cases could be that they're uncomfortable with the approach not only other people in the team, but also you yourself are using. So also be able to reflect on this. How are you best handling these kind of situations within the storming phase is to establish processes and structures based on the work of the team. So how will you track things? How are you doing things as a team? And also who is responsible for what? It's also very important to build personal relationships in order to build trust and good relationship with each other in order to be able to move to the next stage. Resolve conflict swiftly. So don't be afraid to, first of all, approach a conflict if it is there. And then when it is there, don't make it a huge, entire, very long, dragging thing, but try to solve them like short but painful in a way to make sure that afterwards it is 100% resolved and the team can move on from this conflict. Provide support, especially to those people who are less secure. So in storming phase, a lot of times people are the most extreme of their character, either extremely confident or extremely insecure. So they make also sure that you as the person managing the team are giving the support that they need to them. Also, what for you important is that you remain positive and but also firm in the face of challenges. So this is also, for example, when you remember from Taco, the resilience part that we were talking about. How are you which mindset are you having when you're going into challenges? Because this is also part of how your team in the future will actually face challenges based on role modeling. If you're looking at norming, this is the stage when you can remember from before. Here, that where it's going up, where the productivity line of the team is going up. Because people are starting to resolve their differences, they're appreciating each other's strengths because they first of all found out each other's strengths and know how to use them, and they respect your authority as a team leader. They're starting to socialize together and they're able to ask each other for help, as well as they're comfortable enough with each other to provide constructive feedback to each other. What is your role as the team, my person managing the team? In this stage is to step back and help the team members to actually take responsibility for the progress that they're having towards their goals, so that they are starting to develop this ownership and understanding that what they're achieving through themselves. When it comes to performing, here it's when the hard work is starting to pay off and it leads to actually reaching the team goal. And you actually just processes and the structures you have built up in previous steps are now supporting this. This is what is making you perform. And right now, that's maybe the stage that you're in with your EB or with your current team. And right now, it feels easy to be part of the team. And if maybe one person is joining or leaving the team, it won't disrupt the performance because you already know how to work with each other. What is your role in the as a person managing the team in this one? It's pretty much so you can delegate tasks and projects as far as you can. So pretty much that you should take least responsibility actively doing the job because your team is able to perform. Once the team is achieving well, you should also aim to have you should make sure that you're also having a light touch, so everything is also being appreciated, and your team members know that appreciation will happen when they achieve their goals. Also, you yourself will be able to focus on other goals and other areas of work. So where in the beginning, if you're the person managing the team, your main job in the beginning will always be getting the team on track, getting the team through these stages. In part of performing, you can start to take up other parts of your own job description to actually also advance in other parts of that. In that case, after adjourning comes, adjourning is the phase of as well transitioning and making sure people are having a proper team closing, understanding their learning points, and then going each other's way in a way, like parting ways. Cool. Let's move on to the next part, which is actually the touch points. So what are the different touch points that you're having within your team? So this is also something that you're familiar with, of course, from the team standards part. It's on one hand side, you're having team meetings, you have one-on-ones, you have monthly review, team days, and LCM. Let's look a bit more into detail to each of them. So team meetings should be fixed weekly. Make sure that, like, it's easy, for example, to post from my side, to make sure it's a certain time and a certain day of the week. So you don't need to go on from week to week to fixing it, but always every Monday, 10 a.m. will be your weekly meeting, for example. Also make sure that you're using this team meetings actually for the weekly review and updates. So how are you going in progressing your goal? How much have you fulfilled KPIs, and actually what is new within this area, and also what will happen in the next week in order to get closer to your goals. This is the space where you, as the person managing the team, can reward people who have achieved results and reward and appreciate people who have fulfilled their goal and their work. No effective meeting should be longer than 2 hours. So whenever you're creating the agenda, make sure that you're also then during the meeting fulfilling the agenda to ensure that you're not exceeding 2 hours, because people will not be able to concentrate anymore, and this will not be an effective meeting. Also, one thing that can help is that always you having a positive beginning, like a check-in or appreciation space, and a positive ending of what are you looking forward to the week, for example. Because whatever happens on the meeting, it can be that sometimes, for example, your goals are not fulfilled and there's some more unpleasant situations. But make sure that everyone is walking away from the team meeting with this urge of wanting to do more. Make sure that you're also, first of all, having an agenda for every single of these meetings and actually creating output. When you have the agenda, make sure that you also share it with your team in advance so they can see what will the next meeting be about. When it comes to output, it can either be you who is the responsible, or you can assign an output taker who's afterwards uploading the minutes of this meeting. This is up to you and your style of managing the team. When it comes to one-on-one, this is actually the space that you're having alone together with each of your members, and there's a difference between performance review and individual informal one-on-ones, right? So your one-on-ones, especially when you're VP managing a team or overseeing your team there, this will be the vast majority of your meetings, is actually performance management and performance tracking of your people. However, especially in the beginning, when you're having a team for longer, it is important that you get to know people on a personal basis. So, for example, you can go take them out for coffee, find out what they like, in order to build this trust that was also mentioned earlier. Very important thing, whenever you're doing performance coaching or in general, be prepared. So make sure you're taking your time to prepare, that you're knowing the numbers, you're knowing what is supposed to happen, you know the goals, and you also have an opinion on where it should lead. So what is the direction that it should go in, so that you actually can coach the person into the right direction. Also choose the right location. When you're having a performance coaching one-on-one, maybe a bar is not the ideal place for it, but rather have like a part in for example, if you don't have an office, make sure that it is somewhere where you can sit comfortably without being distracted so much. Also, it is important that none of your other team members can overhear the conversation, in order for actually people to feel safe and to express their thoughts during these one-on-ones. Don't hurry through them. Make sure that if you're planning a one-on-one to be for example, 1 hour long, that you don't plan anything for 1.5 hours, so that you don't need to rush out 10 minutes early in case you're in an important conversation, or if you actually are in the middle of coaching when you need to hurry to another appointment. As I mentioned earlier, for team meetings, actually, this is the place for positive rewording of results, right? And one-on-ones are the place for constructive negative feedback to your team. So you should never single out and point out someone in an enormously negative way in a team environment. However, in a one-on-one space, you can very clearly let people know and feedback people on the direction and behaviors or results that you don't agree with. When it comes to monthly review, we have the monthly report, which is the main part of the monthly review, as well as the outlook. So let's say you're having the monthly review in the first 5 days of December. You're looking at your performance from November and the outlook of December. So first of all, what is your percentage of goal fulfillment? What were the main bottlenecks? And also, what are your KPIs for the next week, month, and how will you use them? In general, make sure that you fix them in advance. You can, for example, do this after a weekly meeting, but make sure that you're having a separate designated space for it with everyone actually being present on it. And in some cases, you might come up with new ideas, or you might come up with extra tasks on the monthly review that you want to do in the following month. Make sure that you also, you as the person who's managing the team, actually following up on this and making sure that these things are being put into action. Okay, when it comes to team days may have a bit of a different, not capacity, but different length and different topics, depending on if you're leading an EB team or if you're leading a team in operations, or that your team leader is leading this team in operations. So make sure that whenever you're building a team day, it is based on your team's needs. Make sure you're not delivering to them content that is not relevant to them in their reality right now as well. If it is, for example, those team days where you're creating your identity, if it is team days where you're having a lot of heavy feedback, where you should be seen as an equal in the team and you do not want to take the facilitating role, you can also always consider having an external fussy, which can help you as well with getting an external perspective and being facilitated through this space as well for you as the person who is managing a team. Team day is also a great space for you to have feedback. In general, you should have feedback more often than, for example, once within a team experience or quarterly in the case of EB, that you're providing regular feedback spaces. But on team days, this can be on a larger scale, making sure that everyone is actually giving feedback to each other. If you're not familiar with the concept of 360 feedback, this is you're all sitting in a circle and you're all first giving feedback to one person and then to the next and to the other, but you're giving it to each of those individually. There, make sure that you, for example, as person who's managing the team, can start in order to set the tone for the feedback to make sure that it is constructive but also relevant. Within your AB, make sure that you have at least one team day per quarter. Last but not least, LCM. So this is, of course, the space that you're leading as the EB, and you're also deciding what is topics and educations that are necessary for it. So make sure that this is not something that is planned on a week-by-week basis, but this is something that is planned in advance, and education and topics are set strategically before that, for example, in the local education cycle. Also, make sure that you're evaluating your LC's needs. For example, it is approving peak, but approving is going slower, then maybe you need education on approving, or you need to remind them of the EPs again coming here. But you for sure don't need the sales training for attraction within this space. Also keep it interesting, because people are coming there as well, where it's the only time of the week when they can meet the whole LC. So make sure that they're as well engaged and enjoying. As you can see from LCM, the first part that was actually there is the culture shaper. So this is one of the main touch points where you as EB can define the direction that you want your LC to go in, because you are literally speaking to the whole plenary of your local committee. So make sure to take it seriously, and also to build your local committee meetings around what you actually want to achieve within DRLC. Cool. This was the team spaces that you're having. If you have any questions, for sure, you can also let me know. Let's, for the end, quickly go through some do's and some don'ts when managing a team. So first of all, nobody is perfect. Whenever you're getting negative feedback, when you think that you messed up something, you made a mistake, let it go, but learn from it quickly. Because in the end, you're not perfect, none of your team members is perfect, and it's something that you're all figuring out together. Second thing that especially I learned through my team management experiences is to give feedback on time. If you see something that you think can be improved, that should be improved, don't wait till you have a formal feedback space, but give this feedback right away so the person can improve themselves right away. For feedback, it is also very important that you're making sure that it's always coming from good intentions in the person wanting to improve that you're giving feedback to. Also, when you're seeing that something needs to happen, make it happen. In the sense of don't wait and say, no, this cannot happen right now because of da 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 da. But if you see that something can be changed and improved through maybe changing something simple, do it. Your role as a person managing the team is also to engage your team towards the common goal that you set in the beginning when you did this identity building with your team. But you're the one whose role it is to bring the team together to make sure that they're day in, day out actually believing and striving for these goals. Also, especially as EB, make sure that you're there for socialize, that you're present, you're getting to know your people personally, because it's also super crucial to connect on a personal level before you can respect each other as well within the working side. For you as the person who's managing the team, first of all, know your strengths and know your weaknesses, know how you can capitalize on your strengths and how you can make sure that your weaknesses are not actually affecting your team and your team's performance. Be vulnerable with your team and be honest. So don't put yourself as like the king of the world in the sense of you're perfect and you don't never make a mistake, but share with them your hardship, share with them what you're struggling with. And this is also then something how you can create this vulnerable atmosphere within your team. And lastly, kick your own ass in a way that yes, maybe if you're part of the EB, your LCP will remind you and track you of things, but in the end, you're the head of your area, you're the person who is making the performance in your area happen. So depending on how good you are at managing your area, managing yourself, the better your results will as well be. When it comes to don't, the first one is don't assume. Whenever someone tells you, this person didn't do this, and this is bad, make sure that you're able to back it up with data, ask this person directly, but don't assume things that you're not even sure that happened or that are actually this way. Always go and check. We mentioned this already earlier within the one-on-one part, but don't pick on a single person in a group environment. So, for example, when you're having ABM and one person has by far not achieved their goal, this is not the space to coach them now for 10 minutes in front of the whole team of why they have not achieved their goal. But make sure that this is something that you're taking up in a one-on-one. Don't hold a one-on-one unprepared. Don't hold any meeting unprepared. Make sure that you're taking the time to prepare yourself for a meeting. You're knowing the outcome, you're having the agenda and the direction and the purpose of the meeting in mind when you're going into it. Also, lastly, don't forget to actually enjoy and to also create your own experience. Because if you're enjoying your experience, if you're good at your job, then also your people will be good at their job and your people will enjoy their job. And in the end, enjoying participation is a value of Isaac for a reason, in order to make sure that we're all performing to the best of our abilities. In case you're interested, for sure LCPs already know this book, but it might also be interesting for you. It's called The First 90 Days, which is actually outlining the importance of early wins, the importance of achieving within your first 90 days as you're setting the pace of your whole term within those. Here's a link as well for the summary of the book and the audiobook in case you're interested in looking it up. Cool. Other than that, thank you very much for attending. If you have any questions, please either approach me individually or let me know on Slack. Thank you very much and see you at the next session.